This is commentary on Lesson 86 in the Workbook for A Course in Miracles. Again, today we're reviewing two ideas, one in the first part of the day and the second one in the latter part of the day. We have one longer practice period for each one, and then throughout the day we have frequent reminders of this idea: only God's plan for salvation will work. Or the second one is Lesson 72, holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Those we would have frequent reminders of during the day. And then, as usual, there is this response to temptation when we've come across a situation that we've lost our peace, forgot what our real function is. Then we want to apply specific ideas to those situations. These words are just suggestions as the concepts that's important. So before we go through this lesson, let's go to the introduction of this review and remind ourselves that the longer practice period is one in which we repeat the lesson and we read the comments over for 3 or 4 minutes a couple of times, get the ideas and get the mind focused there, and then we spend the majority of the time in listening for a message for us that's waiting for us, that we want it, it's meant for us. And if we should be distracted and have distracting thoughts, then we can go back to reading the lesson and its comments to focus the mind. But we spend the majority of the time in listening for this message, this guidance inside, something meant just for us. So what it's saying there in this listening is, do not allow your intent to waver in the face of distracting thoughts. Realize that whatever form such thoughts may take, they have no meaning and no power. So we don't want to give power to them when they come up. Just realize they're meaningless, and we replace them with our determination to succeed. And do not forget that your will has power over all fantasies and dreams, and that we need to trust it to see us through. And this is so because the fantasies and the dreams that we made up, these concepts of self that we made up, was a decision. And so, since it was a decision to engage in those fantasies of self, we can have a decision and the power of our will to not believe in them. So understanding our will has that power, and that we need to trust that will is important. And then it goes on to say, regard these practice periods as dedication to the way, the truth, and the life. This is the common description of Jesus. He is the way and the truth and the life. And now in the Course we're learning that we are that same light of the world. That is what we are, the way, the truth, and the life, and that we will refuse to be sidetracked into detours, illusions, and thoughts of death. That we are dedicated to salvation, and that we will be determined not to leave our function unfulfilled. So that's the practice instructions. So here's the lesson 71 that we're reviewing, the first part of the day. Only God's plan for salvation will work. So it is senseless for me to search wildly about for salvation. I've seen it in many people and in many things, and when I reached for it, it was not there. I was mistaken about where it is, and I was mistaken about what it is. And I will undertake no more idle seeking. Only God's plan for salvation will work, and I will rejoice because His plan can never fail. So this is just, this should be common to us. This is the basic idea, not difference in kind, but in degree of codependency, of rooting our concept in something or someone outside of ourselves. That it's those people or things or objects or situations that define us, as opposed to having our concept of self rooted within ourselves, not tied to anything on the outside. So, and that it won't work, and we were mistaken about it. We were mistaken that we thought these idols that we created, that forms our false self-image, was what would save us, and that's what we were mistaken about. And we determined today not to take that idol seeking understanding only God's plan for salvation will work, and we will rejoice because his plan can never fail. So when it says things like this, we will rejoice, that's the attitude that we are looking for in this, that we now know what God's plan for salvation will work, and or what it is, and we know that it will work. So some of the suggested forms for applying this idea could be, and the words aren't important, it's the concepts. When we're tempted to lose our peace, we could say, God's plan for salvation will save me from my perception of this. This is no exception in God's plan for salvation. Let me perceive this only in the light of God's plan for salvation. So as I mentioned in the last few lessons, the word this is a grammatical form, is called a demonstrative. It means very specific. And so this is where the course is learned. We have the general idea, and then we need to apply it to the specifics of our lives, those very situations, those very personalities, those very events that seem to take us away from our true function, take us away from our true self. That's when we want to apply the idea for the day. Okay, so for the latter part of the day, which we will spend about 15 minutes with too, holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. So the word attack here is really important, that it's an effort in the mind to disprove that God's plan for salvation will work. So it's holding grievances is an attempt to prove that God's plan for salvation will not work. Of course, this grievance again is loss, and this is the petulant ego standing up and say, well, what do you mean there's a plan for salvation? Look what happened to me. Look what my body did to me. Look what people did to me. It's like a petulant little child. But this is just an attempt to prove that God's plan for salvation will not work. And that is why our experience that his plan will work, that the peace and the joy and the love we feel will prove that his plan works. So yet only his plan will work. And by holding grievances, I'm therefore excluding my only hope of salvation from my awareness, and I would no longer defeat my own best interest in this insane way. I would accept God's plan for salvation and be happy. All right, so some specific ideas to apply this today would be, I'm choosing between a misperception and salvation as I look upon this. If I see grounds for grievances in this, I will not see grounds for my salvation. This calls for salvation, not attack. So it's not the particular words, but we want to take this concept that holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation and apply it very specifically throughout the day when we're tempted to lose our peace. And the frequent reminder is to hold the general idea, constantly reminding ourselves holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you.